Welcome to Humans of Public Service.
Good morning, everyone. Uchenna, welcome to the Humans of Public Service video interview series. We're so happy to have you.
Oh, thank you. I'm so honored to be here with you.
Uchenna and I had the opportunity to work together at a previous government agency, and she is now the founder of Moka-Solana Impact, but has impactful and exciting public service career to share with us today. So I'm looking forward to get into it. So let's start at the beginning. Uchenna, where did you grow up and what was that like?
Yeah, well, actually, I'm born and raised from Chicago, Illinois. I am a first-generation Nigerian, and I'd like to start with that when talking about my path to public service, because it was actually my parents that instilled a service mindset in me and my siblings and us from early childhood. Coming from the global South, we were taught and reminded to remember where we came from and also remember that as Americans, we come from privilege. And so our parents would take us back every year where we can connect with our family, our friends, our homeland, our culture, but then also be aware of the disparities between global North and global South countries, between the developed country that we were born in and currently live, and emerging nations. And really, Brian, that's not dissimilar from the disparities we see in our own country, between affluent and underserved communities and populations.
Right.
I am challenged every day to ask myself, how can I give back? How can I pay it forward? Especially in a consumerist country like America, how could we be more than receivers and consumers in this world? I went to Northwestern University for biomedical engineering, actually, in hopes to combat world diseases that afflict mostly Black and brown communities like sickle cell anemia, type 2 diabetes. I worked at University of Chicago, Department of Endocrinology for a couple of years. I loved working in research. I loved the laboratory. I loved the part of research that's just asking endless questions. And I worked with lots of mice. But as you know, I'm like, I like connecting with people. I wanted to connect my applied science degree to real world problems and create real world solutions that involved working with and collaborating with people. So I left the scientific research field and went full on into private sector consulting. I joined a global consultancy that specialized in custom software development and digital modernization, using specifically agile and lean methodologies and human-centered design. So now this is going to connect with public sector career later on. I was soon thereafter asked to co-start their Pan-African operations, and I spent 3.5 years in the African continent.
Wow.
And so that was such an interesting and very impactful experience for me, working alongside Africans to build software for Africans. And so when I went back to the States, I wanted to get that feeling of valuable social impact, innovative work that can scale across, and actually have real world impact to the users. So I got an opportunity to partner with Invisible Institute. They're an investigative data journalism organization. And shortly after that engagement, I left private sector, not knowing what I wanted to do next, but knowing how I wanted to feel about the work that I do and knowing more so whom I wanted to serve. And so shortly after, I was serendipitously connected to an organization I had never, ever heard about before called 18F.
Yeah.
I did not know spaces like that existed in the government. I did not know spaces and organizations with the mission they had, the methods that they used, human-centered design, engineering, and product beliefs coming together to serve the end user, the American public. I didn't know there were people that thought like that or that built or bought like that in the government.
Mm-hmm.
And then they got me. They got me.
Could you tell us how they came on your radar? Did they find you, or did someone in Chicago say, hey, you got to check this thing out?
Well, it was so weird how I came about it. And so I know this person through Global Shapers, which is a community nonprofit we're part of that branches from the World Economic Forum. And they got this job description from Andrew Supernaut about looking for an 18F product manager. And she looked at it and she was like, this sounds like Uchenna. And so she sent it to me via our listserv. And I was like, this does sound like me. And then the rest was history.
Wow.
You know, I wonder, how can more people with backgrounds like I have find out about the 18Fs, right? Find out about like safe spaces with like really positive ethos and empathy, not only towards their end users, but like each other as team members, and empathy, like teaching empathy for ourselves. You know, there's this kind of huge focus on self-care and to like put our oxygen masks on first so that we can best serve.
Yes.
And yeah, I loved all that. You know, one other thing I want to talk about is a culture of 18F, but that really drills down to the teams themselves. And one of the teams that I worked with on one of, you know, my most favorite projects and products ever was Department of Justice Civil Rights Division, where we were tasked with designing and building their public complaint portal, civilrights.justice.gov, if anybody wants to go check it out. And after the deployment of that product, it helped the division reduce the processing times for civil rights complaints from 23 days to 7 days. That was a huge win for the American public, but something for me that I remember beyond the tech and beyond the actual product was the team. The team that I worked with was magical.
That is so huge. I think it's just extremely motivating to hear about people in our government thinking about providing service in that way. It's really inspiring and generates hope, at least for me. If you had to describe what public service means to you, if you had to describe your public service experience, what would you say?
It's defined as itself. You're a servant. You know, you are a servant. And I say that in the most like positive, you know, and intentional way ever. You know, and really hanging on to that term, regardless of what role you are in the government, especially as a leader. You know, how do you practice leading and serving beyond yourself?
Uchenna, I am so happy that you spent time with us today. I think you left us with a lot of gems, a lot of things to think deeply about, and a lot of things to consider. You know, I'm so appreciative. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Brian. It's been an absolute pleasure and honor.